Mark about those awards. Cocktail hour, he'll be here. So our last scale up spotlight for the day. I all have you with me, don't I? You're still alive, alert, awake.
Yeah.
So for our Platform 94, could we invite Jacqui O'Connor, CEO of Medscan 3D, Kevin Keane, CEO of Chipright, and Mary Donnellan, CEO Platform 94. They're just getting mic'd up. Give them a second.
All right. I'm not going to tell a story, but we've got some good questions. This is a very cool panel. Just waiting for the last person to be mic'd up. Kevin, you're good. Just a reminder, we have a panel. We've got one more roundtable, and then we got the cocktail. We're going to be tasting a local beer. So exciting stuff. How's everybody doing?
Good, thank you.
Yeah? You guys have been all here all day, or?
No.
All right. Good to have you here now. Maybe we go around this way. Everybody introduce yourselves, who you are, and what is your company, and what does it do?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
I'm Jacqui O'Connor, and I am the CEO and founder of Medscan 3D. We're based in Platform 94. Our company develop and create patient-specific anatomical models for medical device testing and for surgical planning. So our customers include Medtronic, Boston Scientific, Cook Medical. At the moment, we're trying to kind of pivot and grow into the hospital setting. So we've been awarded an Innovation Partnership Program grant. We've just started a ethically approved clinical study in Tala Hospital and St. James's Hospital, which is very exciting and taking forever to get started. But what we're trying to do now is scale and grow into UK and then hopefully into the US as well. So that's the plan.
Awesome.
Great. I'm Marie. I'm the CEO of Platform 94. Mark made me sound kind of terrifying there, but I'm not, I promise. So we're a centre of excellence for scaling technology businesses. We have about 60 businesses in the headquarters in Murrayview, employing about 630 on site. And then we also help scale international technology businesses throughout the wider West and Midwest region as well.
I love that you're on brand. You could
I always wear green, but Claire playing Limerick on Sunday, and I'm from Clare, so yeah, but the Jacqui were at war today.
Hi, so I'm Kevin Keane. I'm the CEO of Chipright. Chipright's a specialist design services company. We supply into the semiconductor industry. So we work with a lot of tier 1 US multinationals, helping them design next generation technology in semiconductors. The company's been around since 2005. And we've grown it organically to date.
Okay, I want to hear about the founding journey a little bit. I'm just going to ask you, Marie, to define scale up, though, because we're like, oh, it's scale up spotlight. So at one time, Google was like 15 years old. They were like, we're still a startup. But now people are like, I don't want to be called a startup. I want to be a scale up. Help everybody here to define what is a startup, what is a scale up, or is it kind of just fuzzy?
Yeah, so I don't think it's defined by a certain period of time. It's more like where you're at in the growth journey. So I think for us, the scale up is that you're established. So you've tested the original concept, you have customers, you have somewhat of an existing team. It's not defined by a specific number of people. For us, obviously, we're very focused on the international market. Ideally, you're either already trading internationally or you're ready to start that journey. And I think there is a big transition between startup and scale up, because you can have a very successful startup that's bootstrapping and doing really, really well. But when you want to scale up, you can't scale chaos. And so you do have to put the kind of structures and policies in place to be able to scale that up and bring that to the next level. So there's kind of a transition stage in a company to be able to move from startup to scale up.
Yeah, I like that. I also think about a lot of startups sometimes don't know their ICP. They don't know their ideal customer profile. They want to serve everybody and they're confused. And one person tells them to do this and they'll create new features for this one person that has nothing to do with their ideal customer. And scaling sometimes is having a firm understanding of who you're serving and the use cases that you solve and the problems that you solve to be able to scale. Like if you do get investment, that, hey, I can put more money, I can back in this and maybe grow internationally. And I think sometimes startups lose their focus that way. And the great scale ups, the ones that are continuing to be able to find investment, is the one they truly understand who they're trying, what problem they're trying to solve. But yeah, tell me a little bit, when is this journey start for you? And I want to have a better sense in terms of funding as well, because we've heard some of the startups today and being helped by a lot of agencies and things like that. How easy was that for you?
I'm in a kind of a unique position. Just first of all, you both explained that transition very well, because I was Googling it to see if there was another word for what is that, where are we as a company from startup to scale up, right in that kind of transition, and there is no word. So I think we need to come up with a word.
We might have to use ChatGPT to ask.
Figure that out. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I thought I was stupid, but obviously not. So I started a company back in 2019 on my second maternity leave. I was working with Smith & Nephew, a big multinational company in hospitals, and my husband, James, has his own startup. Well, it's an established company now, but at the time, I'm selling 3D printers. So we kind of jointly came up with the idea that there might be something in providing a service to medical device and hospital settings. So I said, well, I'll use my maternity leave because I've nothing else to do to kind of test the waters.
That's debatable, but okay.
Yeah, I know.
Nothing else to do.
Nothing to do, just ignore my children. But anyway, so but yeah, within a couple of months we had Submetronics. So we I think it was Boston Scientific first. Quit my job, had to pay them 10,000 for my maternity pay, which was heartbreaking. And ever since growing year on year. But we've had the support of his company. The kind of we're revenue generation from day one.
Okay.
But to bootstrap and to keep going. So we're at that point now where we're looking. Should I get investment? Should I not? Should the company? And then what should I use that investment for? And how? Also getting grants, that helps as well. But very much we're kind of a joint company where we lean on each other.
Who's guiding you in this process? Because it is a challenge, right? Like, get some funding. What does that mean? Do I dilute myself?
For Platform94 coming and it's guys, like without that, I would still be probably working from home, not really know what I'm doing. So they constantly introduce me to people that maybe will help, and not all of them will. It's kind of just a test and translate. I'll put you in touch. It's usually Brian, to be fair. Saying, do you want to talk to this person? Even there have another idea, and half of them will actually lead to something else. Are we gonna expand into the UK, and how we'll do that? So I just had a conversation with Midas. They're based in Manchester. How they'll help us establish there. So it's a constant kind of, but I'd love to talk to.
Yeah, I think John wants you to go to Wales instead of Manchester, but
Get the flight, and I'll be there. Because my best friend is there, so I'm there.
Cool. So Platform94 is guiding you in this journey, and that's very cool. Kevin, do you want to tell us a little bit, because live, right? So that you've kind of been in the trenches and you've gone to war. It sounds like you've come out of there like a champ. Tell us a little bit about those early days.
So it was different in the early years for us. There was GTC was there, it wasn't a Platform94, and Motorjet wasn't here. So John will attest to that. But when we came out and we had an idea, we wanted to work within the semiconductor game and set up our own company and be able to work for them. And successfully we found customers. Actually, one of our first clients was actually over in France, in the south of France, actually. But again, it was a tier 1 US multinational client. And the company trickled along for many years and it was successful. Like we ran it as a lifestyle business. It was fine. But I'll be honest and I'll say, if I went back about 6 or 7 years ago, we uncovered a methodology called scaling up. And it was actually, I don't know, some of you may or may not know of it, but it was written by an author called Vern Harnish. And if you get a chance to read that particular book or listen to the audio book, you'll find out there was another Galway company within the book that it was described upon. It was the Galway City Bin Company, who actually applied all those methodologies within it. Vern was obviously taught it from over in the US and that, and it's, there's a method to follow. There actually is a method to follow. And it's, when we did the course, the OCO Global course and so on and so forth, I was surprised that the exact same things were on the table in front of me, the workbooks, the same thing. But we had actually, 6-7 years ago, we had actually put the groundwork in to actually follow that methodology to a T. And we uncovered so many things about our own business by watching what others said about their business and how they find the criteria. That's the key, find the criteria. So if you take that methodology on its own, it's not enough. It's not enough. So we were very lucky as well that we also had the skills nets. So the skills net here in Galway in Ireland, but we actually we follow the project management. So project management is super, 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 super important. And the reason I say that is because if you're designing your product or your service, whatever it is, I'm sure you put so much focus and effort on your product, and you give it such attention, and you treat that like a project. And then what you have to realize is you have to treat your business and how your business runs and how it operates, and you must treat that like a project. And if you treat it like a project, then you actually split and divide all the departments inside your organization. Your sales, your finance, your R&D, everything. You break it down. We broke it down into about 9. And once we had done that, we put the criteria that measured success for each department. And if you have the ability to measure, then you have the ability to grow. But if you cannot measure, can you grow? So that's what these things teach you. And when you apply it to your own business, it becomes tough. Like, it's tough to measure your own business, right? And define success and failure. So if you can define failure for your business, what will make it fail? How does it not fail? What's success? What is success? How do you define that? Yeah. If you go back to that methodology in the scaling up, you said it today, it was people, strategy, execution, and cash. You need all 4. But if you look at those 4 and you break it down and break it down and break it down, and they teach you that on the course, on the OCO, as part of it, and the internetworking between all the people and learning from each other. But if you have the ability to break down that criteria set, you can measure success and failure.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff in there. The reality is sometimes the product is your baby, and your baby's perfect, right? So the data piece is important but challenging, because sometimes we have trouble really understanding the data that we have and evaluating and making honest assumptions on things. But it sounds like you have created an interesting playbook that you probably need to share with others. But in this scaling journey, you've actually stayed here, stayed local. Did this book say stay here, don't go to somewhere else?
So, great question, by the way. But you can achieve it from the west of Ireland if you have a strategy. And so we actually incorporated in the United States earlier on the year. And in order to grow into the US companies, some of the US clients that we have told us that no, we needed to be present on the ground in the United States. And therefore, again, we use the channels, the network, the US Embassy, and so on and so forth. Platform94 and others, Brian, others, had gone to the Select USA conference last May. Met an awful lot of the development agencies over there. But the truth be known, and I said this when the ambassador was in town a week or 2 ago, we had done an awful lot of research before we ever decided to go to the States. An awful lot of research. And we used Select USA and the trade agencies over there who know their market better than what Enterprise Ireland would know it. Perhaps better than the IDA. Nobody knows their market better than the people on the ground in that location. And you have to recognize that, and which we did. And so we were talking to them for quite a long time. But when it came to it, we had the connections and we were able to incorporate in the US, and actually Chipright is now global from that perspective.
Well done. Marie, a lot of stuff happening at Platform94, but scaling is something that you guys focus on.
And first of all, actually, I'm going to just pick back up the West of Ireland thing, because I'm just quite passionate about it. I think that we as a region have been the poor child for too long, right? And it's time to stop giving out that messaging and that mindset. When you're trying to scale a business, how do you scale an international business regardless of where you're located? And when I look, all I can see, like, the opportunities have been based in the west of Ireland far outweigh the challenges, because some of the historic challenges, like access to local things and having your local network of investors, etc., are kind of becoming irrelevant, because we now have access to the world from wherever we are, you know. So what we can offer, I guess, all of the opportunities of other places, along with a better quality of life, you know, and better local facilities and supports. Yes, we still have housing issues, the same as every other region. But I guess COVID, in one way, moved us forward probably 20 years, what might have taken us 20 years, you know, in terms of the ability to work remotely, etc. So that's the first thing I would say. Sorry, in terms of scaling challenges, the next thing is that when we talk about trying to scale, we assume that the number one challenge is funding. right? And it is a huge challenge, of course, and it's a big focus for us, and we provide a lot of support in that space. And this is something me and Jacqui were hashing out the last day. I would always stop back and say, though, why do you need the funding? What is the funding for? Because, and I think I told you this, Charles, if I handed you 10 million euro right now, you could not, and if no disrespect, I'm sure you would, but you could not guarantee me a successful business at the end of it, right? Because there's a number of different factors that have to come together. So yes, you need the funding, but you need that A team around you. You need those structures and processes and ability to measure in place to be able to scale. You have to, like I said, have the right talent. You have to have the customer base. There's a number of different factors that kind of have to come together in a formula to make it work. And I think that when you're coming out of that startup phase, things are a bit chaotic. We used the word chaos earlier. People think that throwing money at the problem will fix it, and it won't.
It doesn't work.
No, you have to
Works for some.
You have to get the foundation right, and then you have to take in your funding at the right time for the right purposes. And the thing I love about a forum like this is, are you taking in funding to fill a gap in some area of your business that could be filled via collaboration, that could be filled in other ways? You know, so yeah, it's a wider.
So I think the reality for companies in the West and in Celtic regions in general, they don't have the luxury to throw money at something to solve it. And if you take a look at just even companies that are listed that are SaaS platforms, and it's fairly easy to understand how much money they're making or losing. They're pretty ridiculous. And companies like Zoom or whatnot or Twilio, they're spending, I think, $2.50 for every $1 they make. And that's reality. So what's interesting, I find by you and founders that have put in these playbooks is they're well armed for the current VC financial market, because you have to be bootstrapped, you have to be profitable, and they're creating sustainable businesses. And that's super interesting. And that permits them possibly to be able to scale and to go international. I'd like to better understand Platform94 and some of the programs you're running internationally, because Fergal was on stage before. He talked about New York, New Jersey. Can you tell me that playbook, how that works and what happens? Like you go on the Empire State Building and that's it? Or
No, so we would offer a suite of kind of scaling supports and services. Our pillar program being the international scaling program, which Brian has done a lot of work on. So what we do is we bring together, we just finished our first kind of pilot year where OCO Global facilitated our program, and we brought together 10, maybe 11 scaling businesses from throughout the region, so not all based in Galway, up at Barry's Donegal, as part of a 6-module program that kind of went on over a few months. And as part of that, there was overseas market visits where we could put the companies in touch with investors, with connections, potential customers, etc. So the pilot has been a great success. We've learned a lot that we'll be able to apply to the next round of the program going forward. But also from that, and John alluded to it previously in terms of the community. From that, what we've really seen is the need to build out now our international scaling community. So that community of scaling technology businesses throughout the region. But in terms of the market visits, our market visits were to Manchester, which is a real hub for scaling, and to the US. And obviously the US is massive, and it's obviously our next door neighbour. And there is massive scaling potential. But I think we can be too focused on Lila because the cost of setup, etc., in the US is extortionate. I understand the opportunities are also huge, but I think we've such an advantage on our doorstep. We've huge markets right beside us on the other side in terms of Europe. After Britain has exited, we're now the only country with English as their first language in Europe. So there's huge opportunities for us within the single market as well, where the cost of setup, etc., is a lot lower. So yeah.
So huge UK, US focus. In that mix, should there be a possible inter-Celtic focus, or maybe a small percentage of that? How do we make that happen?
Yeah, definitely. And I think Mark's launch is very timely. And I think I really like the idea of building our community into a wider inter-Celtic community as well, and seeing how we can leverage and pull that in as part of our OCO Global Facilitated Program.
Yeah. Looking at everybody here, you guys have questions? Are you armed with some questions? I obviously always have a billion questions, but anybody have something that they want to? Here we go.
Thank you. Thanks very much to the panel. Kevin, could we ask you, and could I hear a little bit more about maybe some of the pitfalls that you have encountered? It's great to get your tips on that book, Scale Up. And, thanks very much for the advice that you've given us, here in the Portershed at other events on, getting into America. But could you give us some advice on maybe pitfalls you encountered in scaling up?
That's a great question. Well, I'll go back to project management for a second. So I'll answer it in two ways. Okay, so I come to the part of the project management one. As part of that, they'll actually teach you about risk assessment. Okay, so look at all the risks in your business. Okay, so look at all the things that can potentially go wrong. Right, and when the business was trickling along, whatever which way, if things are going right, they're going right, and you don't really want to change some of those things, but you're more interested in the things that go wrong. Right, if I'm very honest. And what we actually did was we wrote down all the things that went wrong in every department. So if you pick your product, so if you're designing your product, what's going wrong in your product, don't worry about what's going right in it. Actually define what's going wrong. And you'll have a list of all the things that are actually going wrong, right? It's not that they're going wrong. These are all the things you need to improve. Yeah. So now you have, instead of thinking about it as something that's gone wrong, now you have an improvement list. Right? So if you look at it from a risk perspective, you can actually identify all the things that you can improve to bring your product to be better. But again, I go back and I would say, imagine you apply that to your business. Now think of all the things that are going wrong in your business, whatever it is. Maybe it's cash flow, maybe it's hiring people, maybe it's whatever it is, but you keep writing down all the things that went wrong. And that became, from a leader's perspective, when it comes back to the project management side, then I had a list of everything that was going wrong in every area of the business. And therefore then you come back to strategy. How do you tackle it? And which one do you tackle first? What's the most important? What's the least important? What can you live with? What you can't? So that's from a risk perspective. That's what I would say. And the challenge was recognizing that you had to go back to identify the things that was going wrong. And like I said, to be able to measure it is key.
More questions from the audience?
I'm not.
Galway has an Amazon affiliate link. I hope you use that one.
So I am a practitioner of what this man taught, unquestionably, right? And many are. And he did actually come to Donnellan Castle a number of years ago. He was down in Munster, and he would come across. I think if he organised an event, he would come across, and the people that are surrounded by him and in different things. So we follow the sales methodology. I won't go into his stuff, but my goodness, from a sales methodology. Okay, so when you get into that level of the game, and this is all about scaling. No VCs. So unfortunately, I have no VC. Maybe I will have a VC someday. I don't know, right? But they weren't the focus. They weren't the strategy. It was to grow it organically from the West that could grow and scale. So it can happen. But one thing I'll say about the sales methodology, so they're all different methodologies, and you have to apply them at different points in the game. But on the sales methodology, he had a great one, and he called it a HBA. Anyone like to guess what the HBA stood for? Well, I'll throw it to the floor, HBA. And he came out and he gave a big spiel on it. In actual fact, I think this might have been in Belfast recently, but I can't remember. But, well, I just throw it to the floor. He called it HBA. It was his methodology. Phenomenon? No. No. But if you have the first letter right, the first letter was high. Okay. The P. Come on, give me the P. Performance. From a sales perspective. From a sales perspective, no. High payoff. Listen, high payoff activity. What counts for your business? What actually counts? Don't mind the performance, the high performance. Hey, we're high performing. What's going to pay the bills at the end of the day? Where's the focus? High payoff activity. And then the challenge was to go back and define the high payoff activities to your business. Now think your business differently. Very different. And that's what I mean. It was super challenging to us, and we treated it like a workbook. That's the truth of it.
And I asked where you got the time to do, because that straight away I think about time and how I would give that time over to putting that kind of process in place.
Yeah. So up to
sorry to jump in.
So I love the question.
Yeah. So like I said, the business transformed 6 or 7 years ago. But if at that point in time, okay, I was the engineer happy to do the consulting work and the contracting work and boom, boom, boom. And it was a significant cost to come off that seat and say, hey, I'm not going to do that no more. So put the cost of that on it and put your faith or your belief system in that maybe I should be doing something different. But understanding there's a difference between the service or the product, whatever it is that you're delivering or you're putting there, and your ability to develop a business. They're two separate things. And I think the companies that, if you bring a VC into the business, they will bring not just the finance, but they'll also bring the people that can help achieve those things unquestionably. But for the ones who maybe not get the VCs and so on and so forth, and like what you had said earlier, was that perhaps they don't have the wherewithal, or where do we go? Where do we turn to? How do you figure this stuff out? Who tells you? And the truth is, well, if I'm very honest, the City Bin company told a company called Hillwalk Tours, who are also in Galway, and we networked with them, and they told us about this methodology, and we picked up on it, and I'm happy to share that's what we did. And that's how it worked.
And I think there just answer as well, I think, because it loops back to the very start in terms of that transition period, so that it's okay if there's 2 or 3 months where you don't hit your revenue targets during that period, because you have to kind of come up out of the trenches to be able to stand back and kind of change what you need to change and put those structures in place to be able to kind of go to the next level. Yeah.
One thing we have not talked about, we've talked about scaling companies, but we've often said, well, raise money. But sometimes some companies have done quite well with partnerships, be it a tech partnership or a partnership in another country. I'd love to hear, maybe Kevin, you have experience with partners already and you've been successful. Jacqui, maybe you're thinking about partners going forward. I'd just like to hear your mindset around that.
Great question. For just my business, it affects every business like whatever, like, right? So I go back to the fundamental of that methodology again. Okay, and the first thing we had to work on was a core set of values, the core values. And it depends on what you value. But before you go rushing out there to find a partner and so on and so forth, and you need to understand what your partner values. Yeah, and you need to understand what your end customer values before you go racing to make a sale. Because if you're not all on the same page and there isn't a win-win for everyone on the table, it probably won't work out the way you want it at the end of the day. And if you can define that up front, you save yourself an awful lot of time. But to find the right partners are key. And there are people, when it comes down to it, that you need to be able to trust. Trust is a key, right? And when we created the values actually in the business, our values were weak. I'm very honest, right? So we were very much, I'll be very honest at this point, okay? So we're very much about trust, transparency, honesty, and we were conveying all of that we wanted to convey all of these things. But in each and every one of us, we all have good values, but we're humans, and you have a killer value. You have a killer instinct inside you. There's one killer value inside you, and it's maybe your business has a killer value too, to find the right partners.
Really? Or we saw that, or considering this already?
Yeah, it's come up about, maybe partnering up with hospital suppliers that we can join in on that. But to date, it's more with research centers. So normally if you get a grant, then it's linked with a research center and then we kind of combine. So it's allowing us to push through on innovation without hiring. So we can kind of utilize research centers to do our research for us, and we can continue
Smart.
keeping our revenue stream moving along.
Okay. Where we do a forum in the future, there's obviously one in Lorient this summer, but let's have a little bit longer time frame for you, a year. Where are we seeing you in a year when you come back and share news?
Hopefully incorporated in the UK, maybe Wales, and set up in a hospital system. So the Tala and St. James's pilot study then will hopefully become a revenue generating system, and we've established ourselves within a hospital setting, potentially with some funding and potentially not. I think I was very focused earlier in the year about getting funding, and it feels like the thing to do, especially in the med tech. But I've kind of taken a little breath and said, okay, is it necessary and what am I using that funding for? So I think I came off the treadmill a little bit, and I'm now sitting back and saying, okay, put the systems in place, make sure if I do get funding, I know what I'm using for, and also that I'm putting forward a business plan that's sustainable and trustworthy, and I've got the data behind it instead of just chasing something that's not attainable.
Excellent. I love it. where did you went to Select USA, and who convinced you then? What state are you in? Or do you have a physical address or?
Yeah, no. So when we went there, so like every other company, we probably landed in Delaware first, which is where we did land. Which way.
Yeah.
But our customer, that particular client, is actually in California, whatever which way. And like that, the same as the other clients that we have, like, you know, so the demand for high caliber engineers that can actually design the next generation technology is intense. I was at a conference in Silicon Valley a number of weeks back when we were actually, as I said, pitch a tent over there or whatever. But they talked about AI as well within the chip design space. And there's generative AI tools to help design the microchips. And therefore, the engineers of the future will probably write more like specifications of the next, and they'll get the code generated. But there's a huge, you know, I suppose, not issue, problem, or however, or from a security perspective, that if you feed these tools the chip designs, then anybody can just read back out of them, like, yeah. And therefore, you know, the security and the design inside the next generation ICs is immense. So even though the semiconductor companies take back the fabs, and they're bringing the fabs back to Ohio and other places, I think in Cornwall, I heard earlier on as well, you know, they're setting it up and so on. So yeah, they're bringing it back. But the design, the next generation technology is going to be key.
So do you have a physical location outside of being incorporated in Delaware? Do you have like an office in the US or?
So we're actually looking to put boots on the ground over in California. That's where we want to be, Silicon Valley.
Interesting.
So maybe we'll make it, maybe we won't. But the dream is to go to Silicon Valley. Why not?
Maybe end up with you, Marie, with you better understanding for people here. What's on tap for you guys on this sort of scaling cohort? You just had New York, New Jersey recently. What's on the calendar in the weeks or months ahead?
Sure. So our primary focus for the coming weeks is the launching of our international scaling community, which is a community of scaling technology businesses throughout the region, but not just for the communities themselves or for the businesses themselves. We're bringing in those mentors, advisors, etc. And the thing is, and I'm going to just allude back to a comment Mark made earlier, the Indigenous sector cannot work in isolation. There was a comment made about the FDI. Like, for us, it's an all-encompassing. Our success as a region, as an ecosystem, has to include both. And if you take why Galway has been so successful in terms of the medtechs, it's because the multinationals were here first. It's a push and pull system. And in order for the Indigenous sector to be thriving, the multinational sector has to be thriving, because, you know, that's where the spin-offs are coming out of. The multinationals then become the customers and the suppliers and vice versa. So they have to work hand in hand. So yes, we're building our Indigenous scaling community, but it has to be part of a wider ecosystem lens and viewpoint. Yeah. And I guess it's helping those businesses then with a suite of services and supports, which we've kind of already alluded to.
Great. If you have questions, we're almost done, and there'll be a cocktail and you'll ask your questions then. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.